FIFA Football 2002 would be the second FIFA soccer game to be released on the PlayStation 2 that again was published by Electronic Arts, and the game would also get ports to Windows PC, also on the original PlayStation and even on the Nintendo GameCube respectively. And this title continues on the popular lineage of the FIFA series at that time, as between the early days of FIFA 98 on the PS1 and even during the early to mid 2000s, the FIFA games were pretty much at their peak in terms of sales and popularity and overall playability in terms of what the game and the series itself represented in terms of world football, as at that current time it pretty much was the number one go-to soccer series that you could play on any type of console during that period. As even though you had the likes of the ISS Pro series, which again was another fantastic series in its own right by Konami, but it still hadn't hit the heights of the FIFA series because again there was a lot of limitations in terms of licensing issues with not being able to gain rights to the players' names and so forth, whereas the likes of EA Sports had the rights to all of that with the FIFA series. That would change in later years, but for that time FIFA was the dominant force in soccer games for any type of console, and this version of the game would expand upon the 2001 release on the PS2, which again is a phenomenal game in its own right and still managed to improve upon the dynamics seen on the original game on the PS2 with improved graphics, visuals, gameplay speed and just overall aesthetics. Plus it had updated character rosters and team setups for that time as well, with the game receiving very positive reviews pretty much across the board. At that point in time, literally the FIFA series was considered like gold because every version of the game that came out, it just gradually got better with each version of the game, to a point that it was not only the dominant force but it was always getting recommended everywhere you went, and even it always was getting great reviews across the board in games magazines because literally everybody was playing FIFA. If you were playing or if you were into football at all, there's a chance in every household someone had a FIFA game lying around, whether it was on the PS1 or PS2. You could guarantee that somebody that you knew was constantly playing a FIFA game in some shape or form, as it was pretty much everywhere back in the day. The game would allow itself to be expanded upon in terms of not just the character rosters but in terms of its playability and features. It introduced different types of aesthetics for the likes of power bars to create a different type of weight of passes so that you could create more long form passes or put more power behind the ball, even just for doing not just taking shots but for just passing the ball in general, which added a lot more level of interactivity and controllability for the characters in the game, even with increased dribbling skills and different tricks and techniques that you could use to outwit a player on the pitch. And the game itself was also a good build up towards the 2002 World Cup, and even with the later 2002 World Cup game that was also released in the same year on the PS2 also. Even though this game does expand upon the 2001 release, it is still relatively straightforward to pick up and play, but I will admit, even from my own experience, the difficulty level has been raised a lot compared to the original game, to a point that in some cases for a beginner at times it can be a bit of a struggle, as the computer AI, even on the lower difficulties, is definitely a lot more tuned in to your movements and your tactics. So you do have to really have a bit of finesse, and you just have to practice quite a bit to really gain any sort of an advantage in the game, as it will test your patience. But as with every iteration of the game, they're always going to tweak things and they're always going to try and make improvements, and also in a way to try and make the games more competitive so that people will be presented with a challenge when they decide to play it. It's just a good all-round package when you consider soccer games in general, and like I mentioned, at that time the FIFA series was pretty much the go-to platform for soccer across the board. So you can nearly bet that if you had access to a FIFA game, you would be guaranteed to have a really good experience regardless of the version that you were playing. But I'd love to know your thoughts on FIFA 2002 for the PS2, if you have played it yourself back in the day, and are you a fan of the FIFA games, and what is your favourite generation of FIFA games? Would it be the PS1 and even the early days of the PS2, or even modern consoles? I'd love to hear whatever stories you do have of the games in the series, so be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to be updated of future videos. And in the meantime, if you want to see more content around similar types of soccer games also released on the PS2, you can check out the playlist here on screen to see more of those games in action. And I will see you all in the next one.